Sonic the Hedgehog. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that name? You know, a lot of gamers definitely owe Sonic the grand privilege of getting them introduced to video games and getting them interested in video games. I know for me that's exactly how it was. The first video game character that actually appealed to me was Sonic the Hedgehog. And I've basically played almost every Sonic game that has ever been released. So I'm not in what I would call a complete Sonic fanboy. Like, I don't own any Sonic merchandise or anything like that. It's not that serious. When I was a kid, I used to be way more ecstatic over Sonic than I am now. But even still, you know, he's still a pretty cool guy in my eyes, and I'm still interested in anything that has to deal with him. So I'm not a complete fanboy. I can't say that I'm a pretty loyal fan. And for those who have been around ever since, you know, the early days, the better days, I should say, then you basically know what I'm talking about when I say that he has been abused and misused in almost every way possible. I mean, he has seen so many levels of woe, it's ridiculous. He's seen the good levels of woe, where, you know, easily one of the most entertaining games ever belong to him. And he's also seen the worst kinds of woe, where one of the most deplorable games ever also belong to him. So it's that big contrast in levels that make it so strange that almost 25 years later he is still relevant, and he's actually right now been sort of kind of on an uptick, making his way back to kind of his original popularity, although it probably might not ever get that big again. And you know, it's weird how Sega has been using him lately. They have been, ever since the 2000s came along, you know, the year change 2000, Sega has just been like on this quest to find the perfect match for Sonic. He conquered the 2D space when, you know, the Genesis days, when Sonic the Hedgehog first released, that had Nintendo scratching their heads and wondering why are people so obsessed with this guy, because they already had Mario. The world had already been introduced to Mario, and Mario already had that empire. Next thing you know, Sega comes along with this blue hedgehog that runs across the screen at very fast speeds, and everybody loves him. And that left Nintendo wondering, and that also gave Nintendo more pressure to continue pushing their mascot to newer heights. And the same thing that happened for Sega. You know, Sega and Nintendo was probably the most iconic console war back in the day. You know, that thing is going on between Sony and Microsoft now, but before it was Nintendo and Sega. They were the two top dogs who continuously just kept trying to outdo the other. And for a period of time, Sonic did win. You know, the blue side was winning. You know, the Genesis was selling better for a period of time. You know, Sonic was more popular. He was even more recognizable than Mickey Mouse to children at a period of time. So he used to be really popular. Used to see him everywhere. He had TV shows. He had a lot of merchandise. He had even was featured in stuff like cereals. You know, and they had toys at fast food restaurants dealing with the Sonic franchise. So he used to be a big deal. But ever since 2000, you know, after Sonic Adventure 2, Sega has just been constantly trying to find a place for him. After he hit rock, he just kept going down and kept going down. So finally in 2006, with the reboot of Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out on 360 and PS3, you know, he hit rock bottom. That was the absolute bottom of the barrel. I still don't understand how on earth or why on earth Sega even decided to continue going with him after that. You know, I give them props for doing that, man, because after a character that used to have such prestige hit such a poor level, you'd think that they'd be like a Hollywood has-been, you know, and just disappear off the radar and just let the other guy, the newer guy, the better guy, you know, take the cake. But Sonic was like, nope, I want to do it. And Sega just kept pushing him, and they kept pushing him. And here we are, almost 10 years from since Sonic 2006. It's about 8 years right now, but almost 10 years later, and Sonic is still going strong. You know, so it's remarkable. You know, and like I said, he has been on the rise. But if it's one main thing as to why Sonic has been so iffy lately is the constant change in formula. Like I said, in the 2D days, Sonic was rocking. You know, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic CD, those were prime games. Those were amazing games, and millions of people loved them. And you know, when Sega decided to take it to, when gaming, I should say, decided to take it 3D, of course, you know, Sonic and Mario, they had to adapt to that world. So for Nintendo, it was Super Mario 64, which is considered by many to be not only one of the best games ever, it's also considered to be one of the best platformers ever, you know, for its genre. It's also considered to be one of the best games that was on the Nintendo 64, and it's also considered to be one of the best Nintendo games in all. And Nintendo has made a plethora of games that is just like Ocarina of Time. It's considered to be that was Nintendo's prime time game. It did a beautiful job at showing just how well, you know, that little Italian plumber could be inputted into a 3D world. And ever since then, you know, almost every 3D Mario game has just been an instant masterpiece. You know, you look on game rankings or Metacritic, and you see the ratings, you know, they're in the 90s, the high 90s. You know, Super Mario Galaxy is considered to be the best game of the 7th generation by a lot. You know? So, obviously Mario has done really good in the 3D world. But for Sonic, it's been a different story. What Nintendo has done is, they've taken the formula from past games and from Super Mario 64, and they've just kept building on top of it, on top of it, on top of it, on top of it. You know, they've kept that foundation there. So if you've been playing the games for years, every new Mario game, it feels the same in certain areas, but they've changed it each time to make it feel like a new experience. And each time they've done it, even for Super Mario Sunshine, mind you, it came out good. You know, it was really good. Sonic, on the other hand, has decided, well, Sega, I should say, has decided to continuously not evolve Sonic's formula, but transforming his formula time and time again. Like, even in Sonic Adventure, which was his first 3D game, and Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 are considered to be Sonic's prime time in 3D. Those were arguably his best moments in 3D, according to some. I still don't know why. Both those games I see as being okay, but I definitely don't see them as being as much of a masterpiece as other Sonic fans do. But anyway, even those two games, they played differently. And Sonic Adventure 2 was made on a lower budget, but they decided to still go ahead and try and experiment with the 3D space. So they added a lot of new things. They took out some things. They've constantly tried to balance it out. Sonic Heroes, which released about, I think it was 2 to 3 years later, once again, that was a change in formula. Then we saw Shadow the Hedgehog. That kind of followed Sonic Heroes, but it was still, once again, a change in formula. Same thing with Sonic 2006. That was closer comparable to Sonic Adventure than than Sonic Adventure 2. But they did not nail that formula at all. That was just a bad game. That should not have existed. And then what we saw with Sonic and the Secret Rings, that's when he tried to take on motion control. Once again, that was a drastic change in formula, and Sega built on that with Sonic and the Black Knight, which was still another subtle change in formula. Then they decided to take it all out, and they decided to go with Unleashed, which has built about 2 other games behind it, have all followed the Unleashed formula, being Colors and Generations, respectively. And the Unleashed formula is arguably Sonic's best use in the 3D world yet. In my opinion, that was the prime time for Sonic. I'm not talking about the Hedgehog, I'm not talking about the nighttime stages, I'm talking about the daytime stages. Because Sonic has always been about speed, he's always been about going fast, but at the same time, he's a platformer. Now, Unleashed felt more like a hybrid platformer racing game, because while it still had its platforming, which remind you that it is, after all, Sonic game, it still felt like a racing game. You watch any Unleashed gameplay video and all you can see is just boost to win from beginning to end. You know, it's just constant speed running, which is good if if you're into racers and stuff, but for a platformer, it really didn't nail that very well. In 2010, that was probably Sonic's best showing in a long time. They released Sonic Colors exclusively to the Wii and the DS, but focusing on the Wii version, which turned out great. I've put over 100 hours into it, actually. That should tell you how much I enjoyed it. Sonic Colors for the Wii, it was truly a perfect mixture of that old classic platforming and the 3D speedrunning that Unleashed. So it was the perfect marriage between those two formulas. And that was probably the best use, well, before Generations, that was probably the best use of the new formula that Sega could have possibly done, because they decided to combine platforming and speed, and it came out pretty good, although they kind of nuked the speed just a little bit in favor of the platform. Then Generations is definitely, when you really consider it, when you really dissect it, Generations is probably the best use of the Sonic formula that we've seen yet. It was a perfect mixture. Sonic Colors was a good mixture, but Generations was a perfect mixture of the 3D speedrunning and the 2D platforming. The classic Sonic stages combined with the modern Sonic stages, they showed just the two halves, and it showed just how much Sonic had changed from since his 1990 days to his 2000 days. And it worked well together. It really worked well together, and it would have been cool if Sega decided to keep that formula going, but no, they changed it again. In 2013, we got the release of Sonic Lost World. And this was where Sega and Sonic Team decided to say, okay, let's really take Sonic back. Let's take him way back. So they took him back to his roots of platforming. They slowed him down a bit. He still had signature speed, but they slowed him down a bit, and they also seemed to take quite a few pointers from Mario, preferably Mario Galaxy. Because there are certain points in Sonic Lost World where the action really does just slow down, and you have to defeat a couple enemies to continue progressing through the area. That's something that you usually see in a Mario game. But here in Sonic Lost World, it really was more of a platformer than most Sonic games have been in a long time. But at the same time, it also got rid of speed. So there you have it. They're trying to create a platformer, but at the same time get with the speed. For Unleashed and Generations, because Colors was definitely a little bit more platforming, for Unleashed and Generations, speed was the factor. But for Colors and Lost World, platforming is definitely the factor. And so that brings me to the heart of this discussion of Sonic going one step forward, two steps back. Because you have two big contrasts here. When you compare it with Mario, look at Mario games. Like I said, Nintendo has kept that same basic formula going for years. They've just made some light touch-ups to give the experience a fresher breath. But when you really get down into it, the mechanics, they basically stay the same. They're just slightly modified each time, and it turns out great each time. But Mario has been able to stick to his roots while at the same time engaging in brand new adventures, which give older players something new to look forward to, and newer players an entirely new form of greatness. But for Sonic, it's been just this constant changing, all because he doesn't work the same way in the 3D world. Mario has just been about bopping on enemies, progressing through the stage. So switching that from a 2D perspective to a 3D perspective has been easy for Nintendo. They've kept those same mechanics going, and they've just been changing just little things to keep it new. But for Sonic, it's different. You want to get that speed, but at the same time, you want to get that platforming element in there, and because Sonic is still more about speed than Mario is, that puts the development team, Sonic team, at the crossroads of wondering where exactly should they go. Should they go the platforming route, or should they go the speed route? It works fine in a 2D space. It works perfectly fine in a 2D space, but the minute you have an expansive 3D world, you have to wonder, okay, how am I going to use these 3 dimensions? Am I going to make a racing game, or am I going to make a really fast platform game? And that's the thing that you have to wonder. That's the thing that Sonic Team has been trying to figure out. And with games like Sonic Lost Worlds, it's been just like that. You know, that's them showing Sonic Lost Worlds, Sonic Colors, that's them showing, okay, we want to make a platform, but with Unleashed and Generations, that's them showing, but at the same time we want to keep the speed going. So it's those two big contrasts. You know, it's like bright white and dark black. You know, they're just the complete opposites. Trying to mix them together and create a nice gray, that's a bit more hard than what you would think it would be. Now with Sonic Boom, and I know Sonic Boom is a spin-off, but there's a reason why I'm bringing it into discussion. And it's amazing because this is the title of the video, and yet I'm talking about it 15 minutes later. Forgive me, but I had to just get that, you know, out of the way first. But with Sonic Boom, what Big Red Button Studios is doing is they're trying to take both those elements, platforming, speed, and add a new element, brawling, you know, combat. They're trying to take all 3 of those, well, 2 main elements and 1 subsidiary, and mesh them all together, and that's what Sonic Boom looks to be trying to accomplish. At least the Wii U version. The 3DS version is quite fun, but I'm really focusing on the Wii U version here. And I have to say that, really, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, I'm very skeptical about Sonic Boom. When I first saw the very, very first trailer for the game, I was amazed. You know, it looked beautiful, it looked fun, it looked like a modernized, slightly modified version of Sonic Heroes, which was my very first Sonic game, so I really do like Sonic Heroes. It looked just like that, like a modernized, modified Sonic Heroes. It looked interesting. But then by the time when we actually saw gameplay footage of how the game is really going to look by the time it releases in November of this year, 2014, it definitely looks more like they're trying to do what Sonic Team did in Sonic Lost World. They're trying to take 2 different types, well I should say 3. Okay, let's say 2.5 different types of games and mash them together into one package. So, on one side you're going to have platforming, but then later on in the game you're going to have speed. And then later on again you're going to have platforming, and then speed, and then platforming. It doesn't mesh like how it should. It's not mixing together, it's just they're basically sitting on the side of each other, and then they just keep exchanging. That's what Sonic Boom seems to be doing, and that's why I say it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back. It's showing that they're trying to get Sonic to work in a 3D environment, but that's the 1 step forward. But 2 steps back meaning that they're trying to take 2 extremes, 2 extremely different concepts, and putting them together. Going fast and then going slow, and then going fast and then going slow, it's very unbalanced. And if it's one thing that I learned, you know, being in art class, consistency is everything. If nothing is consistent, if it just keeps happening, this random change, and this extreme random change, it can be annoying and it can be kind of distracting. And that's what Sonic Boom looks like it's going to do, because it has speed stages, and at the same time, it has, you know, platforming brawling stages. So when you take those 2 extremes and you put them together, it makes you wonder how the game in its entirety is going to turn out. Because you basically, just like how you have 2 different playstyles, you have 2 different types of Sonic fans. You have the Sonic fans who love the platforming of the original games, but you have the Sonic fans who love the speedrunning of the more modern games. And when you have those 2 extreme fan bases coming together for each game, it makes you wonder who you're going to appeal to more. Do you want the speedrunning Sonic fans to be happy, or do you want the platforming Sonic fans to be happy? And what Big Red Button seems to be doing is that they're trying to make everybody happy all at once, and that's the problem that I have with this game. You know, the first trailer, I have to say, it's almost like false advertising. Because the first trailer looks like it kept that signature Sonic speed going with the brand new mechanics that they're trying to add in. But with the second trailer, it's definitely showing you what the game really is trying to do. It's trying to be a platforming, brawling, speed, running, mayhem fest, super game thing. You know, they're trying to combine two extremes, and I'm really not sure how it's going to turn out. Now, Sonic Lost World got a lot of flack because it was too slow. And I have to say, like I said before, you know, two extremes coming together, consistently exchanging between each other, no consistency, it gets annoying. And I have to say that's one thing I don't like about Sonic Lost World, is that it does change. Each and every stage, it does change. Some stages are faster than others, some stages are slower. Some stages are more focused on speed, some stages are more focused on platform. You'd have in one stage, you'd be going fast, and then 20 seconds later, you'd be stuck in one single area, and then you start going fast again. And it's that constant shifting between gears that really does kind of lose you. And Sonic Boom looks like it's going to be suffering from that, but to a much greater extent. At least in Sonic Lost World, it was basically, that happened in almost every stage. Almost every stage. That constant changing between slow and fast. Speed and platforming. But in Sonic Boom, it seems like one stage you're going to be brawling and platforming, another stage you're going to be speedrunning. One stage you're going to be brawling and platforming, one stage you're going to be speedrunning, and that's just how it's going to keep going. Then when you look at Sonic Boom 3DS, Sonic Boom 3DS is a 2D game, a 2.5D game, I should say. They don't have to worry about that. They can combine platforming, they can combine speed, they can combine combat. They can combine all three of those genres together, and they're good to go. But for Sonic Boom, which is a fully 3D game, that makes it a whole lot harder to decide, should we go fast, should we go slow, should we focus on the platform, should we focus on the speed. And that's the predicament that Big Red Button has found themselves in. Now, a lot of Sonic fans have been complaining that Sonic Boom really does not look like a Sonic game. Because the development team, Big Red Button, they are consisted of, you know, members who worked on stuff like Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter. So they have that platforming experience. But those platformers were definitely much more slower paced. So they were like Crash, you know, Crash Bandicoot, Banjo-Kazooie, and Mario. They're more reminiscent of those platforms. Sonic was always about going fast. So when you have that together, it makes you wonder exactly how this game is going to turn out. Because the development team, they're trying to take their platforming roots, but they're also trying to take it up a notch with the speed levels to try and continue to make it look like a Sonic game. And that's what leaves me wondering how on earth this is going to turn out. Like, is this really going to turn out good, or is it going to turn out being more or less of a waste of time? Because, like I said, Sonic has been on an upswing. He's been gradually getting better. But now it seems like once again they're stuck in between a rock and a hard place trying to figure out where should they take him next. So it should be interesting. It should be really interesting to see exactly what Sonic Team and what Big Red Button is going to do with this little predicament that they found themselves in. Now personally, honestly, I can't tell you which I decide. Because when you play a game like, let's say, the classic stages in Sonic Generations, and then the modern stages in Sonic Generations, it shows you the two halves of what Sonic is. He's a platformer, but he's also a speed freak. When you take those two extremes together, it makes you wonder, what exactly is better? What works better for you? Combining speed and platforming is better in 2D, but the speed is definitely unleashed when it's in 3D. That's a predicament that the development team is going to have to worry about and work out as best as they can. But for me, personally, as a fan, I have to say that I honestly cannot tell you which is better. All I can say is that for 2D Sonic games, the speed and platforming works beautifully. For 3D Sonic games, I definitely prefer going fast. Two extremes, one game. That is really a head scratcher. So Big red button, I challenge you. I challenge you to convince me and convince thousands of Sonic fans, of really, really lethal Sonic fans, who will probably blow up your headquarters if you piss them off enough, to try and convince them that Sonic Boom is going to be a good game. Try and convince us that Sonic Boom is going to be the Sonic game that we have to play this year. Show Sonic Team how it's done. Show Sonic Team this is how you make a 3D Sonic game. Please. Please, because they've been trying and they've sort of kind of been succeeding. So please don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Because right now you really look like you're about to kill their last, 5 years of progress. Almost 5 years of progress. So hopefully, we'll see how it goes. Alright guys, so thank you for watching this video. It did take a little bit longer than expected. Almost half an hour. I could have watched an episode of SpongeBob for you kids within this time, but I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope to talk to you guys again soon. Make sure that you leave a comment below and give a rating, and please click that subscribe button if you want to stay in contact with my future videos. Once again, it is summer, so I have quite a lot of content planned for you guys, and hopefully things will go very well. So until next time, I will see you later. This is Extreme Zero, signing off.
Although it may not seem like it, this land is home to an ancient evil. No, not him. Even older. A devious force imprisoned below the surface for more than 1,000 years, waiting for its chance at revenge. You and I have unfinished business.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure it's a bad thing.
Now, the only way to stop an evil alliance is to assemble one super extraordinary team.
How we do it.